A mochi moment from Mark, who writes, I just want to thank you for making GLP-1s affordable. What would have been over $1,000 a month is just $99 a month with Mochi. Money shouldn't be a barrier to healthy weight. 3 months in, and I have smaller jeans and a bigger wallet. You're the best. Thanks, Mark. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Mark is a Mochi member compensated for his story.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised. My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today, I'm discussing the case of Margaret Ellen Fox. In 1974, 14-year-old Margaret left her home in Burlington, New Jersey, full of hope and anticipation. She was on her way to what she believed would be a promising babysitting job, a chance to earn a little money and take one more step towards independence. But she never came home. What followed was a mystery that would haunt her family and the community for decades. A chilling phone call, a cruel hoax, and a trail that seemed to vanish almost as quickly as it began. This is the case of Margaret Ellen Fox. It's the summer of 1974 in Burlington, New Jersey, and 14-year-old Margaret Ellen Fox is determined to make this her summer. She just graduated from the 8th grade at St. Paul's and was headed to high school next year. Now, I'm assuming that everyone listening right now is over the age of 18 or at least in high school, so I think a lot of us can relate to this particular summer and how crucial it feels at this age. That moment of graduating from middle school and going on to the big leagues, high school. That urge to transform yourself over summer into someone new, someone better, and maybe a little cooler. According to statements from Margaret's brother Joseph, this is really how she felt. Margaret was one of 6 kids and the only girl. They all ranged in age from 11 to 22. She hadn't started to date yet and was described as a homebody who never got in trouble. She was looking for more independence. She wanted to find herself. And like a lot of kids her age, she was trying to express herself in part by experimenting with different clothes and makeup. But those things cost money, so Margaret comes up with an idea. With permission from her parents, she decides to place an ad in her local Burlington County Times newspaper to promote her babysitting services. And she's not alone. Her cousin, 11-year-old Lynn Parks, joins her on this. On Wednesday, June 19th, they place a joint ad that says, quote, "Experienced teen girls love kids. Work at your house," end quote. They also provided both of their phone numbers. Now, this may feel a little jarring by today's standards, but this was by no means uncommon for the 1970s. Outside of just word of mouth, the newspaper really was the best place to attract new clients for services like this. So they place the ad, cross their fingers, and hope they get some work over the summer. And that same day, Lynn gets a call. Her number was listed first. It's a man named John Marshall from Mount Holly, just a few miles from Burlington. He says he has a 5-year-old son who requires supervision 5 days a week for 4 hours each morning, basically from 9:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Lynn would be back home by 2:30 p.m. at the latest. And it really sounds like an amazing gig. He says he and his wife have a swimming pool and a swing set, that their son is really good and just needs someone to basically play with for those few hours. He's also offering good money, $40 a week and bus fare. Adjusted for inflation, that's over $250 a week for 20 hours of work, so over $1,000 a month. That's a lot of money for a kid. So Lynn runs to her parents and begs them to let her take this job. But they say no. They think it's too far from home. Lynn is obviously very disappointed, but she tells John Marshall that she cannot take the job. So he goes to the second number on the listing, Margaret's. He offers her the same deal and wants her to start on Friday. Like Lynn, she's excited and begs her parents to take the job. And they say yes. While Margaret does have to take the bus, John Marshall says that his home in Mount Holly is only 7 miles away. So it's not like she's going really far. It seems like a good opportunity for her to get the independence she's craving and make some money close to home. Margaret is stoked. But the next day, John Marshall calls back. This time, Margaret's father, David Fox, answers. Marshall explains that his mother-in-law passed away, and he and his family were going to attend the funeral, so they wouldn't need Margaret's babysitting services until Monday. This was the plan. Margaret would take the 8:40 a.m. bus to Mount Holly and meet either John Marshall or his wife at the corner of Mill and High Street. Reporting does differ as to who she was supposed to meet with, but one of them would be waiting there for her in a red Volkswagen to take her to their home. According to reporting by Ron Avery for the Courier-Post, Margaret writes down the man's name and phone number on a piece of paper, and her father gives her strict instructions to call back home when she gets to John Marshall's home. So on the morning of Monday, June 24th, 1974, Margaret and her 11-year-old brother Joseph walk to the bus stop at 8:30 a.m. At 8:40, Margaret boards the bus and leaves for Mount Holly, and Joseph walks home. Again, this is only about a 7-mile trip, so Margaret's parents are expecting a call not long after she leaves. But that call never comes. So they call the number given to them by John Marshall. They call and they call until finally someone answers, but they tell them that Margaret's not there. They've called a payphone outside of a grocery store in Lumberton, New Jersey. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto-ship feature that gets the dog's food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/Sarah E. Turney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
At first, Margaret's parents assumed that there must have been some mistake. Maybe Margaret had written down the wrong phone number. So they go to the phone book and start calling people with the last name Marshall. They also drive to Mount Holly to look for Margaret. But once they realize that something is obviously very wrong, they report her missing to the Burlington police. The first detective to work Margaret's case was Leonard Burr. He says that they were able to confirm with the bus driver and a passenger on the bus that Margaret did board the bus and get off at her intended stop. So it didn't seem that Margaret had any other intentions beyond completing this job, and she didn't somehow miss her stop. Detective Burr immediately suspects foul play of some kind. And luckily, it's an all-hands-on-deck situation. They don't think that she's a runaway, and they get right to work, as does Margaret's family. Her father and brother specifically look all around the county for Margaret or a red Volkswagen, which was unfortunately extremely popular in the 1970s. Try as they might, they don't find anything related to Margaret or her disappearance. But when Mount Holly Police Lieutenant Benjamin English hears about Margaret's case, and specifically hears the name John Marshall, his ears perk up. He tells his supervisor that he has an old friend named Jack Marshall, and he just so happened to be the assistant manager of the A&P grocery store in Lumberton where that payphone was located. Jack Marshall was promptly questioned by the FBI. He provided an alibi and passed a polygraph test. He later told the Courier-Post, quote, "I have no idea what is happening. I didn't even know the phone number outside had been used until this morning. I have no ideas, no theories. It's just causing me a lot of trouble." End quote. In that same article, Detective English added, quote, "I've known him for 25 years. He's the father of 5 grown children. I'm sure he's not involved." End quote. Margaret's sister-in-law, Ramona Fox, also knew Jack Marshall and expressed a similar sentiment. She didn't believe that he was involved either. Jack Marshall was officially cleared, though his involvement is still debated to this day. Some people say it seems clear that he was the person who lured Margaret away, while others say that it would be pretty unwise for him to use such a similar name and give a phone number that directly led authorities to him and his place of employment. Then, just 4 days after Margaret went missing, her parents get a call that has left investigators baffled to this day. By June 28th, the FBI had already become involved in the investigation. They were, quote, probing to see if this was an appropriate case for them to take. So they get her files, as much information as they can, and help set up a recording system connected to Margaret's home phone. And these efforts pay off big time, because a man calls demanding a $10,000 ransom for Margaret. This call has never been released in full, but authorities release a small portion of what the man said. Quote, $10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping. End quote. The next day, a note arrives at Margaret's home with further instructions for dropping off the money. The note explains that the money should be put into a box with blue wrapping, same as Margaret's blouse. They added, quote, Margaret is all right. We only tore her blouse and broke her glasses. Follow the instructions. End quote. It's terrifying, but Margaret's parents are ready to pay the ransom. Adjusted for inflation, it would be just over $65,000 today. But something goes wrong. They get another note saying that they, quote, goofed the arrangements for getting her back and that the deal was off. Now, as far as we know, this person was using publicly available information about Margaret. The color of her blouse, blue, wearing glasses, that was all known to the public at this time. So, to this day, authorities aren't sure if this was real or just a cruel hoax. But it's not long before investigators make another move in her case. During their investigation, they questioned employees at shops in the area where the bus dropped off Margaret. And they find a witness who says they saw her speaking to a man in a red sports car on the day she went missing. In August, the FBI released a sketch of the man, saying he was wanted for questioning. He's described as a white male, about 35 to 40 years old, 5'10", and about 200 to 230 pounds. They believe he had, quote, very blue eyes, end quote, light blonde or reddish hair that was graying and styled into a crew cut, as well as very noticeable white and even teeth. They also say they believe he was driving a red-orange Volkswagen. And they add something really chilling. They say that this man had tried to pick a girl up in Mount Holly about a month before Margaret went missing. It seems like a very promising lead with a lot of information, But like everything else in the case thus far, it doesn't go anywhere. By November, Margaret's father David told the Philadelphia Inquirer, quote, "I haven't found out a thing. Not one thing whatsoever. Some people feel it's hopeless. Sometimes I just accept that. I think that it's over and done. But then sometimes I get this feeling that she's alive, that she's out there." End quote. He adds that the hardest times of day for him are early in the morning after waking up and right before bed. He says that's when it's quiet, and there's nothing to occupy his mind other than Margaret. Every morning before going to work as a plumber, he attended Mass, and each night before coming home, he stopped at the church again to say a rosary. It's honestly heartbreaking. In the same article, he says a friend of his had a dream about Margaret, that he saw her standing near a riverbank, holding a dove and surrounded by dead lambs. David thought that maybe God was trying to talk to him and tell him where Margaret could be. But Detective Burr adds to the harsh reality of how little progress the case has seen, adding, quote, "It's one of the most frustrating cases I've ever been involved in. The case is still open. We check everything out, but we just don't have anything." End quote. And there's really not much movement in Margaret's case until the following November. On November 23, 1975, a man in his 50s named Charles M. Cloudbridge is sitting in the Montgomery County Jail in Norristown, Pennsylvania, when he tells the officers he has a confession to make. He says he killed Margaret Ellen Fox. He explains that he kidnapped her off Penn Street on June 24, 1974. Then he murdered her and dumped her body off a cliff in the Catskill Mountains in New York. Authorities jump on this. They launch a massive search of the area spanning 3 months. The New York State Police, FBI, and authorities from the Burlington County Prosecutor's Office all join in the search and the investigation. But they don't find anything. There's no sign of Margaret or really any crime they can tie back to Charles M. Cloudbridge. In April 1976, he admits that his confession was a giant hoax. And he is promptly charged for misleading authorities. At his sentencing, the judge asked him why he'd do something like this. And he said, quote, "Honestly, Judge, I can't answer that." End quote. The judge reiterated how cruel his actions were, especially for Margaret's family. His public defender argued that he was a lost soul and asked for him to be admitted to a psychiatric hospital. But the judge refused, and he was sentenced to 2 to 3 years in state prison. It was another huge letdown in Margaret's case. This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together. And Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse. So I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the Keys. Any leads on who they might have been running for?
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
Again, Margaret's case just sits. But in 1977, there was another case bearing a stunning resemblance to Margaret's. 15-year-old Patricia Coltow from Milltown, New Jersey, placed an ad in her local paper advertising her babysitting services, and quickly got a response. Before leaving the house, she told her grandmother she was going to meet with a Mr. Anderson to discuss babysitting for him. But Patricia, like Margaret, never returned home. Her body was quickly found, though, and 20 hours later, 31-year-old John Owen Houseman was arrested for her murder. He had 2 prior convictions of sexual assault and lived about 10 minutes from Patricia's home. It looks like they tracked him down due to numerous obscene phone calls he'd made, including one to Patricia's home after speaking with her about the fake job. He was eventually sentenced to life in prison plus 11 to 13 years for the murder of Patricia Coltow. However, no connection to Margaret's case has ever been made. The following year, in 1978, authorities chase another lead. They discover a sex offender in Mount Holly who didn't live far from the bus stop Margaret was last seen at. So they investigate, talk to him, and he provides an alibi that some have considered to be pretty weak. It seems that this guy was an avid ham radio operator and kept a detailed log of all of his conversations over the span of many years. When they ask him about Margaret and where he was at the time that she went missing, he shows them this logbook. He says it proves that he was using the radio at the time Margaret would have gotten off the bus. And law enforcement basically drops it, or at least that's how the media reported it. Once again, Margaret's case sits, this time for 10 years. In 1988, volunteers were helping clear an area near Sandy Hook Bay in the borough of Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. This is about 70 miles or an hour and 15 minutes from Burlington. According to reporting by Kevin McElroy for the Courier-Post, they were there to help move debris near the beach so they could build a new bike trail. And as they're removing this debris, one of the volunteers comes across what they believed could be a human skull, though they also thought it may have been a plastic ball of some kind. They call it into police, and it is confirmed to be a human skull. So law enforcement brings in dogs, and it takes them 4 minutes to find more bones. These remains were covered by 2 tires from some type of automobile, and only buried about 1.5 feet deep, so they are very close to the surface. Investigators say that they believe that it's likely that these remains, that this person, was originally buried a lot deeper, but due to erosion over the years, they were much closer to the surface now. Local police set up a 24-hour watch at this site and just keep digging. In the end, they find what they believe is about 85 to 90% of this person's skeletal remains. And here is what they initially determine. They were female, 15 to 19 years old, 5'1" to 5'4", and they had a high forehead. They believe she likely died in the early or mid-1970s and was the victim of a homicide. They also find at least one size 6.5 platform sandal and scraps of clothing. These scraps have been described as a light-colored long-sleeve top or top to a dress, a sock, and part of a lace bra, though reporting on which clothing was found does differ between sources. And really, from what I found in my research, this just seems to sit for a few years until 1992. This is when the FBI's Special Projects Unit is brought in to create a clay reconstruction of the skull. When they do, investigators believe the reconstruction bears a striking resemblance to Margaret, especially given everything else that could be a match. Many investigators believe that Margaret was likely killed not long after she went missing, so the timeline would fit. She was about 14.5, 5'2", last seen wearing sandals, and she did have a high forehead. At this point, everyone, especially Margaret's family, is excited that this could be her. But there's an issue. While they were able to recover a full set of teeth from the decedent, it seems that Margaret's dental records may have been misplaced. According to statements made by Margaret's original detective, Detective Burr, the records were given to the FBI very early on, during that probe when they were trying to determine if her case was appropriate for them to take on. He says they misplaced them. And this is a few years before things were entered into computer networks, so paper is all we have at this point. Now, unfortunately, Margaret's dentist had passed away by the time this development happened, but his widow says that she clearly remembers giving the records to a member of law enforcement. She just can't remember which agency, but she knows they were handed over. But there's some argument over this. Tim Duncan from the Atlantic Highlands Police says that the FBI handed over all their files to him, and he says that there was no indication in that file that the FBI was ever in possession of the dental records. So we have a lot of people pointing fingers at each other. I obviously don't know what the truth is, but I can tell you that Detective Burr did another interview many years later after this, in 2017. By this time, he was 80 years old. He says that Margaret's case is the only case he's never solved, and it haunted him. He added that there was a distinct lack of cooperation between the local police departments and the FBI, saying, quote, "The goal now is to solve a case, not get credit," end quote. It's a short quote, but I think it's very telling. Without the dental records and with forensic testing really just coming of age around this time, this lead again just sits for over a decade until 2005. This is when the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reached out to retired Burlington City Lieutenant Bob Elberson. They basically say, hey, we still have these remains that could be a match to Margaret. So he works with the local police department to obtain a DNA sample from a hairbrush of Margaret's that her family had previously provided to authorities. And after 17 years, they're finally able to use this hair to make a good, usable DNA sample for Margaret. They take the sample and compare it to DNA from the doe, but it's not a match to Margaret. It's another huge letdown. But, as a side note, this woman was later identified in 2022 as 16-year-old Nancy Carol Fitzgerald. She was last seen having Easter dinner with her family in Bloomfield in 1972. Unfortunately, her case does remain unsolved, and authorities are asking anyone with information to contact the Atlantic Highlands Police Department at 732-291-1212.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're gonna crack this case and prove we're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
You are...
Gary the Snake.
And your last name?
The Snake.
Dream team.
And new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home.
You're clearly working at
Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG.
Margaret's case sits again for about another 10 years until 2017, when Detective Burr and retired Willingboro detective Michael D'Alessio are featured by the Philadelphia Inquirer. They want her case solved. We also learned some new information about Margaret's case, specifically about one of the ransom notes. It had apparently mentioned the Symbionese Liberation Army, the same group that infamously kidnapped Patty Hearst just 4 months before Margaret went missing. They also shared that they had diaries of Margaret's, and she discussed being bullied in school, and possibly starting a new life in California or Florida. They do discuss the possibility that maybe Margaret is out there alive somewhere, living a new life. D'Alessio says, quote, "We need to close the case. There has to be an ending or a conclusion. Even if she just moved away, this brings hope to people to know that they won't be forgotten." End quote. Just 2 years later, we see more movement, more passion in Margaret's case. On the 45th anniversary of her disappearance in 2019, the FBI announced a $25,000 reward for information leading to Margaret. They also released something huge, a 6-second clip from the original 1974 phone call demanding the ransom. While they had released this quote way back in 1974, they say that thanks to new technology used to enhance the audio, they decided to release the man's voice in hopes that someone may come forward with information that could finally solve Margaret's case. As a reminder, the clip says, $10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping. Now, because this clip is only 6 seconds long, I'm going to play it for you a few times.
$10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping.
Who is it?
$10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping.
Who is it?
$10,000 might be a lot of bread, but your daughter's life is the buttered topping.
Who is it?
This is huge. We have a voice that may lead us to Margaret. But that clip was released 6 years ago. And unfortunately, Margaret's case remains unsolved. Which brings me right to our call to action. As of recording this episode, Margaret went missing 50 years ago. 51 years next month. But she's long from forgotten. And her case is far from being impossible to solve. The man speaking with Margaret on the day that she went missing was estimated to be 35 to 40 years old, meaning he could be in his 90s today. He could still be alive. He could still have friends or relatives that know something but haven't said something. Even if he has passed away or whoever abducted her passed away, someone could still recognize the voice on that recording. So if you share anything, please share that. They also have Margaret's DNA. Even at the age of 80, Detective Burr was determined to solve this case, and it's clear that her loved ones never gave up on that possibility either. So please share. There is hope. As a reminder, 14-year-old Margaret Ellen Fox was last seen getting onto a bus on June 24, 1974 in Burlington, New Jersey. She has blue eyes and brown hair. At the time of her disappearance, she was 5'2" and weighed approximately 105 pounds. 2 of her top right teeth were missing, and she wore eyeglasses. She was last seen wearing jeans with a yellow patch on the knee, a blue blouse, a white and black checkered jacket, and brown sandals with a heel strap. She was also wearing a gold necklace with flowers and a blue stone, and a gold charm bracelet with a blue stone. Margaret was also carrying an eyeglass case with a Huckleberry Hound design on it. Anyone with information is urged to contact the FBI Newark Field Office at 973-792-3000. You can also submit tips online anonymously at tips.fbi.gov. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice media original. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The studio door is open, and our emotional support puppies, Heber and Popcorn, are in the room. I do have an update to share in terms of my sister Alyssa, her case, and this doe that is being tested or was being tested. I, as always, am trying to be very careful with my words. I don't want to give too much away, but I also want to keep you guys informed and really keep Alyssa's name in the media in hopes of, I guess, ensuring that she is still a priority. So this week, I got word that, let me back up. I didn't tell you that Alyssa was being compared to this doe using dental records. So they were using Alyssa's dental records and comparing them to the teeth found in this doe or on this doe. And that testing came back inconclusive, meaning they don't know if it's Alyssa or not. When I got that email from Alyssa's detective, I was very surprised at the ending of that email. Sorry, I'm being really slow. I'm trying to be very careful about the words that I use. That email ended by him basically saying, I'm sorry, this isn't the news you wanted to hear. It's not good news. I hope that new leads come in soon. Which was really surprising to me because I would have expected for the plan to be to move forward with DNA, and that didn't appear to be the case. I did ask for them to proceed with DNA testing, and I'm not sure right now if that's going to happen. So that's basically where it stands. This, if you guys listen to season 1 of this show, you will know that if this DNA testing is not done and we can't rule it, in or out as Alyssa, this will be the second set of remains that are a question mark that could be her out there. I really don't know if I'm going to be able to give you more updates in the future. That's going to depend on what happens next. But I will say right now, I am going to fight to get that DNA testing done. Even if it's not Alyssa, those remains are someone, and they deserve to be brought home. But let's move on to Margaret's case. I will say in terms of media discrepancies, there were a few. I addressed them, really most of them in this episode. And most of the coverage is older, so it is a bit more consistent, I will say, than we tend to see when, honestly, when these newer dramatized TV specials come into place. So overall, not a ton of media discrepancies. The reporting was pretty straightforward. There were just a few things, like I said, was it the man or the wife who was supposed to meet her there? There was a little discrepancy about which clothing was found, stuff like that. The next thing I have on my list is talking about what's normal now versus the 1970s. I've seen a lot of criticism towards the parents in this case. How could you let your kids place this ad? How could you let her, take the bus? How could you let her go to this man's house? And, while I'm not saying let your kid do this now, it was pretty common back then. And I think that showed in the episode. We have 3 girls in just this one episode that placed ads in their local paper, for babysitting services. This is just how things were done back then. I also think that this really was more of an age of innocence, as naive as that might sound. Things might not have been safer, but it certainly felt safer. You didn't have this massive online social media, breaking news right now for you guys type of news cycle out there. It was a little bit different, and I think people felt safer. I don't know. I just felt like that was worth acknowledging. I know that I do have some younger listeners that may not understand that this kind of stuff was really normal for back then. My next item on the list is ham radio man. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a skeptic, and I really hope and honestly believe that they probably had more information to rule that guy out. But when I read these articles that was he showed this log from his ham radio hobby or whatever. No offense to the ham radio enthusiast out there. He showed this log and he was on the ham radio. We cleared him. That just stunned me. And I just wanted to bring that up. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like maybe it was just the way that the media reported it, or maybe what law enforcement was telling the media. It was just really weird, and I was not satisfied with that conclusion, for whatever that's worth. The next thing on my list is DNA. I think that there's a lot of hope in this case. You guys know me. I'm always going to say that there's hope in these cases, but they have DNA, which I think is incredible considering this case is from 1974. The fact that they went back, got that DNA sample from hair, which is not easy to do. I'm thinking about the year, right? 2019. No, I'm sorry. It was 2005 that they developed the sample. That wasn't easy to do. Um, yeah, so I just think it's really cool that they have DNA, and that does bring me right to the hero of this episode. I do want to give a shout out to like the many detectives that worked this case that seemed incredibly passionate. The volunteer detectives, the detectives who were paid to work this case. I love to see it. I love to see detectives who just want to help, who are very, very passionate. It makes it clear that they were in the right line of work. But specifically, my hero of this episode is Detective Burr. Coming back at age 80, you guys, the tears I cried. That is amazing. I think that is so freaking sweet. He came back and was like, this case was never solved. It's the only case I never solved, and I want to solve it. This man could be, on an island in Bermuda, in Hawaii, on the beaches of New Jersey, whatever. But instead, he was there helping work this case. That is fantastic. I love it. I love it. I love it. I also want to say that I also really, really appreciate his honesty when he admitted that there was this rivalry between local police and the FBI that could have hindered the case. I thought that was really brave, to be honest. You don't see many officers who are willing to be so open about missteps like this, to say, hey, I think that we kind of messed up there and that could have hurt the case. You just don't see it a lot. It's not totally unheard of, but it's not very common. So shout out to Detective Burr for being dedicated and being honest. You rock. Now it's time for our segment of hope. This is from Newsweek.com, and our author is Mandy Tahiri. The headline reads, Missing Teen Girl Found Alive After Nearly 3 Weeks, Over 600 Miles from Home. This is rather new. This is from May 12th, 2025, just a few days before this episode airs. And they are not naming the girl, which good for her. And it says, quote, a 17-year-old girl from a Detroit suburb who had been missing since Easter has been found in North Carolina and reunited with her mother, according to U.S. Marshals, in a press release on Thursday. It goes on to say, on April 20th at 1:30 a.m., the teen was reported missing from Roseville, Michigan after running away. She was described as a missing endangered child with thoughts of suicide. So obviously a very, very scary case. I can't even imagine what her family was going through, but she was found after 17 days. It looks like she was found in North Carolina after law enforcement surrounded a motel where she was staying with a 26-year-old man. He has been taken into custody, thank goodness. It looks like what led up to this were there were a bunch of sightings of this girl. People called it in, they saw something, and they said something, you guys, and it led to her coming home safe and away from this 26-year-old man. This makes our segment of hope for obvious reasons, and also, I know that she was listed as endangered with a possible threat to herself, but it's really great to see when law enforcement does follow tips and engage in investigations of runaway children. You guys know how I feel about that. Runaway kids are still missing. They are all in danger until they are found. So I just love to see it. And again, it makes our segment of hope because she was brought home safe. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.